Hi, my name is Euin Cobb, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do one of my favorite types of missions. I use these mostly these days for raising funds so that I can actually do more interesting missions that are more fun, more exploration. At this point I've already filled out the all the science in this. I've done it several times in this I don't know, iteration of the game. And so I'm not seeking science as hard as I was. Instead, my goal now is to visit all the planets. But that's not what we're going to do in this video. In this one, we're going to position the satellite in a polar orbit of Kerbal. Now, any mission that gives you the opportunity to earn a lot of money, for example, I don't know, over 110,000 credits or units or whatever they call them in the game, is worth doing. And I'll show you in a moment the rocket we're going to use for doing this. But it's important to go through here and make sure you don't miss anything. You need to launch a new unmanned probe that has an antenna and can generate power, reach the designated polar orbit around Kerbal. They're not always polar orbits, and they're not always around Kerbal. Sometimes they're around Minmus or different locations within reasonable deviation. Maintain stability for 10 seconds. Okay. It's got to be a new satellite. You can't have put into this particular orbit something that you've already got out in space. Okay, and looks pretty easy. These are actually very simple once you get the hang of it. There's a few key points that you have to understand. I've already picked out a rocket and modified it slightly for this particular mission, and this is it. It's 3 stages. That's the bottom stage. No, excuse me, it's 4 stages. There's an engine there, engine down there, engine there. These 2 are terriers. That's the swivel. The swivel and the terriers are able to gimbal slightly on their hinges, on their mounts. And this is a spark engine in there. Now, by the way, you will notice if you're new to building rockets that the bottom stage is the biggest, and the middle, then they get progressively smaller as you go up. And this is the only mod that I use, Kerbal Engineer Redux. And the reason I use it because it tells me the thrust to weight ratio, which you can change for different planets and such, to any of the planets or moons you can go to. It's set for Kerbal right now. At launch, our first stage will get 1.68, which means it'll be doing basically 1.68 Gs to the entire rocket. When it starts, it'll do 2.5 Gs when it's running low on fuel, just in the moments before it runs out of fuel. And it shows how much thrust each one is going to provide after, of course, gets rid of the others. It also shows a lot of other stuff, the cost and the data. This rocket, by the way, totals of only 17,800 or 805 credits. And so since we're going to make about 110 or 111, it's a nice profit. And this also tells the total delta V. This is the delta V for each stage, and this is the delta V cumulative. So the first stage has this amount of delta V, then the second one adds this amount to it, which will add to this. The next one will add that amount to it, which will total to this, and so on. This one, the final stage, will give almost 3,000, or 3 kilometers rather, giving us the total rocket value almost 7,000 meters per second, 7 kilometers per second. It also tells you how long each stage is going to burn. Kerbal Engineer Redux is very handy. And I rely on these numbers when I'm designing a rocket for any particular mission. I mean, if you know you're going to a certain planet or Minmus or a moon or whatever, and you know how much it takes to get there, because if you've looked it up, then you know what you need. And if your design is not giving you those numbers, you're not going to make it. So there's it's a real time saver and aggravation saver to have Kerbal Engineer Redux. Again, it's the only mod that I use. A few key points for better control. I put an advanced inline stabilizer there, and also one up here, a small one, just for the final stage. These are really kind of unnecessary to this mission. You don't want to run out of electricity, so you want some photovoltaic panels and a battery. Reduce friction with a nose cone. And this is the Kerbal Engineering system. It's tied to this somehow. If you forget to put this on your rocket, you're not going to get all these numbers. At any rate, that's the machine we're going to fly. So let's go ahead and fly it. And by the way, these boxes on the side, these 3 boxes, are also from the Kerbal Engineer. I usually like to open that up, so that I can monitor, make sure I'm not running out of electricity or whatever, and monitor if there's any science to be grabbed from whatever. Anyway, and by the way, this is how you open and close them. You got extra numbers up here and here. This is the number I watch, apoapsis height. That's how high you're going to go after you launch. I usually check my staging. Oh, and I usually watch the G-force too. Right now we're just sitting still on the pad, so we're at almost 1 G. Let's see. Check my staging. I try to remember to check the staging when I'm still in the vehicle assembly building, but at worst, it's good to do it here. Since we're launching with a liquid fueled engine, we need to throttle up. We press the shift key for that, the left shift key, and this is the throttle. And we hit the T key, the T, to turn on our SAS, on our navigation controls. Okay, and the space bar to launch. And by the way, I don't know if I can go to M right now. Yes, I can. Okay, this is the orbit that we're going to try to get into. Well, that we're going to succeed in getting into, shall I say. This one right here, the one in yellow. It's a polar orbit. Yeah, I've got a lot of stuff in space. I've played a lot of this game. It's a pretty good game. At any rate, so we're going to try to launch, and we're because it's a polar orbit, that means that we need to launch. I mean, ideally, we should launch heading north, which, by the way, north is that's east toward the ocean, away from the vertical assembly plant building, the vehicle assembly building. That's north. We're facing north right now. So we need to turn, usually I'm pressing the D key when I'm rotating, but we're going to be pressing the W key, I believe it's the W key. I guess I'll find out once I get up into space. Okay, so now if we wanted to, we could go into an equatorial orbit and then shift. We have enough fuel, I believe, to shift 90 degrees afterwards, but we're going to try to go into a polar orbit from launch to save fuel and efficiency and save time and stuff like that. So where are we? Okay. Oh, we're right under the orbit. I mean, if the planet was rotated and we were over here, going into a polar orbit would put us at a huge angle compared to this orbit we're going to try for. So, since we are coincidentally almost, I did not time that, but apparently it's a good time to launch for this. So we need to head, what direction is this side? We need to head north. The other side is heading south, so we need to head north. Okay. So launch. Now, of course, we can't turn right away. I've seen some people do what they call a gravity turn, meaning they turn this off and they take up a little bit of tilt, and they allow gravity to slowly rotate them in the direction that they want to go. I'm not going to do that because I don't trust that. I haven't practiced it, tried it, and experimented with it. And so what I'm going to wait until I get above, say, around 16,000. And then I'm going to start my turn. This is how high we would go if we were to cut the engines right now. How we would peak out, coast up to, and then fall back. Right now we're at about 2 Gs, but you'll notice it's climbing. Oops. Okay, we're at 13. Okay, we can begin doing our turn now. Yeah, the W key is the one we want. So, I'm going to go to about 45 degrees. We've got to go above 70 kilometers. We would peak out right now at 33 kilometers. G-force is not bad. I don't like the G's to get above, say, I don't like it to get above 3. It seems to make my my craft unstable. Okay, we're not heading straight north. We need to turn a little to the left. We need to turn a little to the left. Did you see the engine kick over there? Yeah. Because we're not heading due north. Okay, now we're starting to move a little more toward the north. Might need a little more. Okay, 53. Run low on fuel. Okay, I think we can tilt a little farther over. Yeah. Okay. Okay, 68, getting close to 70. Okay. Okay, we're going to throttle down a bit. Okay, throttle down some more. We are approximately 49 seconds from our highest point. This is our path, and that's where we would crash back into Kerbin if we were to keep our engines off perpetually. I'm sure you're aware I'm pressing the M key to go from here to here, to switch back and forth from one view to the other. Let's see. We want to thrust some more when we get close to this. We're probably close enough, I suppose. The nav ball. The nav ball shows our orientation. This is the sky and this is the ground. So that if we point toward the sky or we point to the ground, this gives us an indication of that. And there's a circular marker that shows our heading, the direction we are heading. Okay, we need to begin thrusting again to circularize our orbit. That is to say, make orbit. Okay, let's... It's extending, extending, extending. I only have a Terrier engine I'm using right now for this, and so it's not quite as fast as I would like, perhaps. But we're gonna make it, I think. Oh, we ran out of fuel. Okay. Okay, throttle down. Okay. Throttle up. We want to get above 50. Above 70, excuse me. I'm pointing at the marker as it's running away from me. Let's see, the other marker, 74. This one is 65. Now, we only have a little bit of our rocket left, but it's pretty much loaded with fuel. And it has a delta V of 2727 meters per second to almost 3 kilometers per second. I think that should be sufficient. Okay, so what's our altitude? We are at 66 kilometers below, which means we're below orbit, but our load point is going to be 65. Okay, so at this point we now are heading in the right direction to go and match with that orbit. So the next step is to go out there to it. Now, that's that orbit's greatest distance from Kerbin. And this location, let's see. Okay. These are what we're looking for, the descending and ascending nodes. What that means is our orbit is kind of close to that orbit. Pretty darn close, actually, 2.6 degrees off. But it's not a perfect match. You can see that they're lined up pretty nicely. At any rate, what we need to do is extend our orbit outward. And to do that, we want to match our orbit so that it touches one of the nodes. That would be the ideal condition. So, we need to find out at what point we can touch one of these nodes. Now, we're there, and so we could probably go for that one. But we're not going to go for that one. Instead, we're going to go for the opposite one. And the reason we're going to do it is because we want to do a maneuver, and the maneuver will take a little bit of tweaking, which means it's going to take maybe a minute or two. Of tugging on these things. By the way, if you point, let me start over, I'll show you. If you point at a place on your orbit, any place, you'll notice there's a little ball that forms. If you left click on that ball, it will give you this opportunity. You can warp there, or you can add a maneuver. I clicked on add a maneuver, and these different there are 6 different things that you can tug on. This symbol is the forward. It means the prograde, the forward direction of your orbit. It's also seen here, so that you can if I click on that, it causes me to rotate. Let me show you. As you can see, I'm traveling toward the North Pole. If I put it on just any old place and I turn, okay, so I'm not pointing forward. In fact, I can I'm definitely not pointing forward now. But if I press this, the craft will point forward. And it's one of the controls. You can also tell your craft to point retrograde, which is the opposite of forward, and indeed backwards. So that if you're landing on the Mon or Minmus, you can tell your machine to point rearward in the opposite direction it's going, so that it's always in the direction that's appropriate for landing. You can also, now mind you, all of the control this is, let me turn it a little bit. No, turn it this way. Okay. This is what's doing it. This is the Probodobodine OKTO2, and it has some pretty good abilities. Now, there's also some that don't have such good abilities. They don't have that many skills, you might say. And by the way, I'm watching my electric charge to make sure it doesn't run down too much. If you point at a solar panel and you right click on it, it will tell you its sun exposure and how much energy it's producing, which can be really handy. This one is 67. And by the way, if you tell it to point forward, it will actively try to point forward all the time, which means that it will use a lot of electricity. If you put it on this, it will use far less electricity, in fact, almost none. It just means stay still and don't move. At any rate, let's get back to what we're trying to do here. Left clicking on it to activate it again. Now, as I pull this out, it makes my orbit big in that direction. I'm saying I want to speed up this much. I want to slow down a little bit. Okay. Now, I go up here and look, and I can see that I'm a bit of a distance from that thing. Now, the way to slide that over is to grab the center and move it. I'm simply changing the point in my orbit where I will burn my engines. Now I can see that they're pretty close together. That's pretty good. So, and they're lined up pretty well. They don't have to be perfect, not at this point. Okay, now this will take, this is an indicator of how much burn that you're going to have to use. Almost a kilometer, 840 meters per second. And the blue arrow, I'm using the keys to, let me get back to my object. There it is. That blue marker is the direction of thrust for the maneuver that I've just plugged in. And that's how much thrust I'll have to do, and I'll have to do it in that direction. Now, mind you, I'm not at that place in my orbit. I'm still up here. I have to wait until I get down to here, and then I'm going to thrust. And yes, I don't know how much you know and don't know, and so I don't know how much explaining it will take for you to be able to mimic what I'm doing. Okay. But just to be clear, that blue marker, you need the center of the blue marker, which is a dot, to be lined up with that yellowish dot in this symbol. This is the symbol that means the direction of you pointing. And the craft is always pointing at that marker. So you line the two markers up, and that's the retrograde, by the way. And that's another, that corresponds to one of these markers. That's the prograde marker of the direction you're actually moving. So anyway, we get these things lined up by tapping on the keys. Okay. Now, the next trick. We don't really want to sit around and wait for the, 9 actual minutes, almost 10 minutes, 9 minutes, 51 seconds that it'll take to get to our burn point. And so we're going to speed up time. We're going to use the time warp. We're going to run time 2 times, 3 times, 4 times. That's all you can do when you're this close to the planet. When you're far from a planet, you can do 100 times, 1,000 times. I believe you can do 10,000 times, which is for when you're between planets. Okay. You can now see that the time is running much faster. But it's not as fast as I'd like. Maybe I'll edit some of this out. And another thing I can tell you while we're waiting is that we are now in darkness. Time's still running fast, by the way. But we're on the backside of the planet. Which makes it very difficult to see anything. To see your object. There's the moon, or the mun, M-U-N. Which I think is why they put these bright nebulas in the game. Okay, we're now at 5 minutes. Not 5 real minutes, because we're now at 4 minutes. Okay, that's us right now. I imagine you know already that you remain always at the very center of the screen. And everything of the universe shifts around your position. Okay. Now, we're going to be burning for quite a bit of burn. So we're going to start at, say, I'm not sure. This says estimated burn 8 seconds, but I think that's wrong. We should probably start it about maybe 30 seconds early. So I'm going to drop out of the speeded up time warp, when we get close to 30 seconds. 57. Let's go ahead and drop out now so I can adjust my alignment. Okay, this is me. We lost a little altitude apparently. And you'll notice that it is now lined up with our forward motion, or our direction of movement. Okay, we're at 28 seconds, so we're going to go ahead and start thrusting. And our orbit is getting larger. It will grow on this side to match the dotted yellow line that is our projected orbit. And this can be used as a guide also of how much, this is how much fuel we still need to burn, or how many meters per second, how much acceleration we need still to do. Okay, we're now at plus 9 seconds. So it looks like my estimate was pretty close. The blue line is drifting away from us, meaning we were slightly off. We need to thrust down, thrust down, thrust down. Okay. Now run the engines more gently now. So that we can gently, gently, gently. The blue line is, of course, our actual orbit. Okay, let's see how we're lined up. That looks pretty good. Doesn't quite touch it. Okay, very nice. So we can hit this X to cancel that out. And now, it will take quite a while to get up to this location. It's 4 hours. So we're going to I need to... Looks like I need to bump it out just a wee bit to touch that orbit. Yeah. Okay, so I'm not going to fiddle with maneuver here, except that I want to be pointing in my forward direction. Manually tweaking it. Is there a station passing near us? I don't know. We're passing under the bottom of Kerbal, by the way. Oh, there's the South Pole. Cool. But we've sped up a great deal, so we are heading away from Kerbal. At any rate, so I'm pointing forward. Now I want to thrust a little bit. There. That's it. That's all I want. Okay. Now, you'll notice before we only had 4 of these markers. Now we have a number of them. So we're going to speed up and head on out there. That's us right there. Now there's an important reason why we wanted to head for the ascending or descending node, and that is that if you were to head to one of these other locations, then it would take a number of different maneuvers in order to match the plane of your orbit with the plane of the other object's orbit. But since this is the point where your orbit and the other orbit crosses, which is why it's called the ascending and descending nodes, then this is really the place where you want to, well, you can match orbit and match the plane of the orbit with the least amount of fuel wasted. Okay. Now I want to pause here for a moment because I want to plan my next maneuver. Now, the obvious thing, of course, is I want my orbit to be as big as its orbit. So we want to make it bigger by tugging on the prograde, the forward direction. But you'll notice that we're still a little bit out of alignment all the way around. So we'll have to tug on one of these other items. One of the, for example, these 2 lateral. No, not that one. This one. Okay. Just as an example, if I pull it this way, you see that we're not aligned. But if I pull it this way, we are aligned. Okay. But you can see that the orbits are still a little off, a little weird. So now we're going to pull on this and this, although maybe this one first. Yeah. That's pretty nice, although it made the orbit bigger. I've noticed that before. That means that I need to slow down, so I'm going to pull in the retrograde. Yeah. Now the 2 orbits are almost in alignment. Yeah, that's not bad. Yeah, okay. Now that will require 394 meters per second of velocity change. And of course, it will be done. And by the way, all the rotating I'm doing now is being done by by this. This is the reaction wheels. They are used to change your orientation. I have one small set of reaction wheels, which allow me to rotate pretty darn fast. That's pretty darn fast. At any rate, let's see, go back to position. There it is, right there. Okay, so when we reach there, we're going to thrust 394 meters per second generally in the forward direction. But it won't be exactly forward direction because we have these other tweaks to our orbit that we're going to do. And that's why we're lined up with this blue marker. That blue marker incorporates all the different tweaks that we are intending to make. All of them have been calculated and placed in that. Okay, we're at 100 times speed. Because we're farther from Kerbin, our orbital speed has slowed down a good bit. Okay, we're still 36 minutes from target. I don't want to overshoot. 15, 14, 13, 12, 11, 6, 5. Okay. We're about 5 minutes from position. There's the Mun with a number of objects on it and orbiting it. Now, you don't actually have to be exactly on it, but you want to be pretty close, especially because we've incorporated a number of different tweaks to our orbit change. So we want to be, within a minute or two. 4 minutes. 3, 2, 1. Okay. Okay, we're 36 seconds. Okay, and we are lined up, so we are going to start thrusting. Okay, we're burning our fuel down pretty quickly, or making our change pretty quickly. So we're backing off on the throttle a little bit. I'm going to zero the throttle because I see I'm off my mark just a hair. Throttle up a little bit. Yeah, the mark is trying to drift slightly away from me. Okay, gently, just a little bit of throttle, and watching till it's about lined up. Okay. And we did it. I don't know if you caught that, but it makes a little green lines that radiate outward. Okay, and if we make this thing go away, we're in the orbit they wanted us to be in. So our money has increased by 100 and something thousand, and we have succeeded in making the orbit, and that's us right there. Okay, If you, at your home, go ahead and do, follow along with what I've done. Not necessarily with this orbit. It can be used. This method can be used with any specific orbit where you have a mission that they want you to get in a specific orbit, and we still have almost half our fuel left. We have 1,452 meters per second available, which I think means we have probably 2 of these. Yep, that one's full. You right-click on that one's half full. Okay, you right-click on pretty much anything, and it'll tell you something about it. Like to observe the mystery goo, or find out how much light you're getting in your solar panels. Oh, and there's Kerbal. Okay, but that's how you do it. The basis is, if you can, launch to the direction, and then try to cross the intended orbit at the ascending or descending node. That's probably the most important key, so that if you can be coming in at a 90-degree angle, and if you can do your burn at the ascending or descending node, you can either make it in one set of maneuvers or perhaps 2. And very often it's not as close as this one. It was only off by a little over 2 degrees. I've gone in when I'm like at 10 degrees or 12 degrees, and generally it takes 2 maneuvers, rather than just the one maneuver at the ascending node that I did now. So if it takes you 2 or 3, I've done it in 3. This this made it probably look easier than it really is, being able to do it in only one maneuver at the ascending node. But at any rate, it'll give you the basis, the foundational understanding of how to do it. Anyway, you guys have a great day. My name is Euin Cobb, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye. Bye for now.